All right. Hello. Welcome to Creative Feminine Rising, where modern women are heeding the call of living a sacred life and leaning into the unique creative path that is laid out before them through life and art. And today is an interview that will be part of a series where we'll be talking to authors of Call of the Mystical Mountain, Mount Shasta and the Emerging New Earth. Melanie Kay is one of the authors, as am I. And we're going to talk about Mount Shasta. We're going to talk about her chapter. We're going to talk about why all of this is relevant at this time on our human journey together, and why Mount Shasta matters, and why these mystical experiences matter, not only for the individual, like in this case, Melanie, but also for the collective experience. So welcome, Melanie. I'm going to read a
Thank you
little
so much
bit
for
about
doing that.
you. So Melanie Kay has dedicated her life to a path of service and to the Earth's ascension. She proudly holds title as somatic psychotherapist, star alter, Reiki master, Vedic astrologer, galactic high priestess, crystalline grid mechanic, and ascension researcher. That's quite a territory, sister. It is our absolute joy and pleasure to share her gifts and wisdom in any way to support the ascension journey for all evolutionary souls. She currently resides in Mount Shasta at her soul's home. And we'll talk more about that concept too of the soul home. I just lost your chapter here. Where did it go? I'm looking at the digital copy here on my iPad. So, yeah, one of your claims to fame right now is that you have a retreat center in Mount Shasta called the Rainbow Bridge, a new earth
Yes.
school that holds private immersions from May through October. And during the off season, you take people traveling around the world for these powerful spiritual experiences.
That's
So,
right.
wow, Melanie, I'm so happy to have gotten to know you a bit, and I can't wait to get into your chapter here. So, first of all, maybe tell me about your experience writing about a mystical opening and a relationship with the mountain, which is not something that most people are talking about in the world, a relationship with
Yeah.
a mountain. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, I've been wanting to write about my experiences for a while now, and I'm so grateful for you, Dr. Nisa, just because it really put the fire underneath me to take the leap and do it. It's quite vulnerable, actually, to share such deep personal experiences, and especially when they're really outside of the box, and outside of like what the normal kind of citizen or galactic human, thinks about in their day to day. So there was quite a bit of resistance. I'll have to say there was just a ton of resistance. It took me a lot to actually sit down and start, and the inner critic just really alive, so fiercely alive. And the way that I found the pathway to kind of create a sacred space for me to do the writing was actually to play Saraswati mantra. I found a track on Spotify actually of her mantra being sung 108 times, and I just put it on repeat, and I literally just did the whole chapter in one sitting. Yeah, and sat for a few hours, and it just flowed through. And I really didn't have to change much. I read through it and actually kind of made myself cry a little bit that in recounting it and recalling it and sharing it. And then of course the submitting part of it, like the submitting it to the editors and submitting it to the team, was a whole nother just like jump, a just leap of faith, because you have no idea when you're pouring something out of your heart, that how it's going to be received and if it's good. And another layer of the critic comes in and like, I didn't know if it was going to sound like an elementary school child wrote this thing or if I was writing from, from this bigger, deeper place. So I was happy to receive the feedback that I did, which was, yeah, just a confirmation that it was from the heart and it was from this deeper soul place. And I could feel when I felt when I was writing it, yeah, there was more than just the story being shared. It was like a code that it was a permission slip for other people to kind of dive into some layer of journey or process too.
Yeah, I hear that. And that was certainly a big part of my intention in calling you and the other authors to the table to do
Mm-hmm.
this, because I understand from my own experience is that when other people are sharing about something powerful or outside the box, or maybe something that I don't really feel safe talking about for whatever reason of my own vulnerability, that when other people do it, it gives us permission, right? So we can feel like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's okay to talk about that, because all of us, people like yourself and me who are standing up for New Earth, we're standing up into new values, right? And so the old way and restrictions about your spiritual life having to be quiet, we're in a process with that, right? Like, how much
Right.
do you share for the sake of, your the sacredness of your experience, right? So that that doesn't go awash by broadcasting, but at the same time providing enough inspiration and permission for others to trust themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's really about. I feel like that's what that story is about, is really trusting these impulses and these intuitions and following them and yeah, without I mean, just completely surrendering and trusting, and then what can come from that, even if it does feel like it's an indirect path or it's an out of the box kind of path, or it just to follow the anyways, and see what happens. Let yourself be that play, and that curiosity, that childlike curiosity. I use that a lot in my guidance. It's like let's be in our childlike curiosity and bring all the wisdom that we carry with us at the same time.
Well, you speak about in your chapter this whole experience of stepping out of the box, of a lifestyle, a whole belief system, a limitation of a marriage that wasn't serving you, a particular course of study, like a whole way of being that was making your body sick. And I want you to
Mm-hmm.
speak about that if you feel comfortable with that right now.
Yeah. I think as we all, I say we all, this channel specifically is speaking to the creative feminine rising, right? And I think that this was bubbling up for me. And I was really trying to find outlets for that in my day to day life. And the relationship and partnership that I was in, every time I was kind of exploring that, whether it was like putting together my first altar in the house, and tracking the moon cycles, as I got called to remember that wisdom, I was getting kind of teased a little bit. I was really getting teased about who does that, or by my husband, by the closest person that was with me on my earth walk at that time, and so I had this I was just using our mantle in the living room. You know, we had like a false fireplace and we had a mantle, and I was using that as my altar space. And you know, Martin would like put his receipts from the end of the day on the altar, and I was like, that's not what that's for, you know. And can we not do that? And you know, there was kind of like, well, you can't just claim this part of the house as like your. I'm like, I'm not trying to like take away a part of the house from you. I'm actually just trying to create sacred space in our home. And so there was just so many layers of that kind of misunderstanding or misreading what that was coming from me and coming through me. Um, Many layers of that, but it was making me sick. And I think, well, not to, you know, I don't want to, my ex-husband's an amazing human being, so I don't want to, you know, throw him under the bus here, but I think that he, you know, he had a difficult mother, and I think he had some of those repressed feelings that were coming out towards me as his partner, and I was taking that on, like taking it into my body during our intimate
Mm.
time, and you know, yeah, there was a way that at that time I was studying to become a psychotherapist, and I was open to a lot of my, I was opening up to a lot of my sacred gifts, and finding a way for that expression to be real. And yeah, that was, it wasn't welcome. It was it
Yeah.
wasn't no, not welcomed. It was actually like, it was like, put it away, you know, tuck it back
Mm.
in. And that, you know, was causing a dis-ease in my body.
Yeah. Right. So the concept of your whole chapter, and actually the concept of this book, is this sense of calling. So you know, regard not making anybody wrong, but you were being called to something different. You were
Mm-hmm.
being called to a more spiritual life. And so oftentimes the resistance to that tug creates problems. You know, it can create disease in the body, it can create depression, it can create
Oh,
conflict, it can create all kinds of things, right? So
yeah,
you
discordance in
really
my
have
family
some kind
system too.
of
Like I, yeah, I in my, yeah, um, it took quite a bit of time for even just like my family to accept that this was my path, you know, because you know, it was so like, that's so woo and so too new age, and you know, a lot of, you know, projection around like you're losing it, you know, or you know, you're a crazy person, and a lot of that kind of language was yeah, was being thrown around. And so it's confusing already in your own self. And then to not have the people that are the closest to you kind of nurturing or supporting that either. They're just kind of the earpieces to maybe your own inner speak. Yeah, the mouthpieces to that. Like it just, it's a lot to, it's a lot of courage. You have to gather quite a bit of like heart energy, right? Cur is the Italian root for the heart. You know, like that's the root meaning of courage, is like of the heart, you know.
mm,
And so
mm,
um it really did take a lot of like gathering up and well, saying, yeah, no, I don't have a choice. Actually, that healing crisis created an absolute catalyst for me to make big choices. Yeah. And
yeah.
thankfully,
So for the people
incredible team of people that had access to. So I was already in a somatic psychotherapy process as part of my training to become a therapist, and then I just started scaffolding. You know, I found this amazing acupuncturist in the Bay Area who was totally in tune with all of these ways, and then yeah, then found a Reiki master who was disguised as a massage therapist. And I had gotten a massage from her like a year before this diagnosis. And I was really kind of whacked out. I was like, whoa, that was a lot, you know, just the massage. But when that diagnosis came in, I knew I needed to find her again. I was like, that's the person I know is going to be able to help me through this. And she
mm,
became my first Reiki master.
okay, so not everybody knows your story or has read that. So, what is the diagnosis that you're speaking of? And
Sure.
tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about the journey from finding out about this issue and getting to a healing, which it sounds like you had an experience in Mount Shasta that really sealed the deal for your body on this piece so that you are officially fully on the other side of it. So,
yeah.
yeah, go about that.
Yeah, yeah, so that kind of taking on of the resentment and anger towards the feminine from my husband and probably from my family system as well. Like, I mean, this is a little bit classic, but I was manifesting diseased cells on my cervix. So it's called cervical dysplasia. And the first diagnosis, it was just that. And this is why women get pap smears. I mean, in my discovery phase of what this is all about, I found out that like many, many, many women had gone through these procedures to kind of cure this dysfunction. Um, and the cervix is one of the most sensitive parts in the feminine body, and it has all of the stem cells there, and it can expand and contract. So there's a lot of rapid cell growth there. So this is why they check for diseased cells there, because that can manifest quickly that if it becomes cancerous. And so I got that diagnosis and I got an initial biopsy done. And they said, I was like just right before cancer would start developing. It was like that level of dysplasia that, um, or abnormal cells, that it was going to start turning cancerous. So it was a high alert. And when they took the biopsy, I realized how sensitive I am. Like that was a trauma for me. Just even them taking the little cone of cells out of that space, and then the diagnosis was that they were going to, there's a procedure where they cauterize. They like take a layer off of your cervix and it cauterizes the cells there. It's like it's electrified loop. They call it a LEAP procedure. So there's that option, or then you can also get it frozen off, or there's like, but essentially they were going to, you know, basically go in and cut it off. And for me, I don't know, somewhere deep, deep inside my heart, I was like, this is like genital mutilation. Like, this is on the same level, but it's just diagnosed under the Western system. And everybody feels like, oh, this is normal. This is whatever. And so many, many women get that done. And I don't shame any women who have gone down that path for that particular healing. But I just knew for myself, I was like, this is not right, and I feel like I can heal this to myself, and I feel like I can get to the bottom of it. I had always really known we could heal ourselves. My mom was kind of new into new age stuff, and she had Louisa Hay's book like back in the day, heal your body, heal yourself, something like that. And I just had the belief that I could do it. So I started on that journey. But we're talking, when the story that I wrote about the completion phase on Mount Shasta for that healing journey, that was like 3 years of time between when I got that cervical dysplasia diagnosis and then when I actually did the ceremony on the mountain. So yeah, I went through a phase. I did clear it, but I didn't leave the relationship, and we didn't like sort through that dynamic. And I had changed my diet so that I was doing anti-inflammatories. I was seeing 3 different practitioners. I called it my trinity of goddesses that was like helping me, purge that. So after I got the clearing, diagnosis, I was like, oh, awesome, I did it. And I just went back to like normal living, going out, having drinks, whatever, like just being in the city, and being a city person. So the next path that I got, it was it was cancer. It was like stage 1 cancer. And I was like, whoa, how did this come back? How did it come back even worse? And that's when I did a I happened upon I don't know if it was a flyer or someone talking, I don't remember now, but I happened upon a naturopath who actually had a particular holistic protocol to work with those cells. And so she was doing a treatment where she was like painting on a particular enzyme that would like break down the cell walls of the diseased cells only. It's like a derivative of pineapple. And then she would paint bloodroot onto the cervix, like directly on. And and that would sclerose the cells, like suck all the water out of them, and they would die. Just the diseased cells. That those herbs only worked with the diseased cells. And she would sit with you while you were while you were receiving the medicine, and almost like let you journey on the table. And that's when I think it was like the sixth session that I was like, yeah, I can't do this and I can't heal this and still be married to my ex-husband. So
Hmm.
that was
That's
like,
powerful.
yeah, so that was so yeah, that internal shift really sparked like what I needed to do in the external to be able to heal that. And of course that took a process, right? Of figuring out how to disengage from that relationship and dissolve that partnership in a good way. And so it was once that was all cleared and done. And in the intermediary of that, um, my Western doctor, because I wouldn't get the treatment she recommended, she fired me as a patient. So I got a save your ass letter in the mail that said, you're going to die, or be terribly ill if you don't get this treatment, and um, went into the full terror and the full experience of like, am I doing the right thing? And all the second guessing, like, is this the right way? But just like recommitting to what I knew in my heart is right way and moving through that. um that's when yeah, and somewhere in that 3 years I had discovered Mount Shasta as a sacred center. I had met my teachers, which I talk about in the book, that I still hold dear today. And they had so many different kinds of tracks of learning that you could do around the ascension process. And I didn't even know what that meant at that time. Like, what does that even mean? What's the ascension process? But like, you just discover step by step and open and expand to new information coming in. And I could just tell that was like right way. So yeah, I'd been dancing with the mountain a little bit back and forth from the Bay Area. And so when everything was complete, the divorce was finalized, I had gotten a clean bill of health, and that the my naturopath gave me clarity that it was all complete and it was all gone. I came up to the mountain to celebrate that.
Not knowing that there was another step. There is this quote I pulled out of your chapter that I thought was really profound. And I'm just going to read it out loud. It says, I was stepping into a self that I had only dreamed of being. And now here I was being it. And so this
Mm,
was in the context of you being on top of Mount Shasta after finding an eagle's head shaped piece of obsidian and getting called up to the mountains. Tell us what happened there. That is just so
yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I had, it there's what I knew about Mount Shasta is that every time you'd go, it's like you could have a plan, but that plan would just go to out the window if once you got there. And the mountain kind of just directs you to where you need to be when. And anyways, I had picked up a book on the sacred sites, and Medicine Lake was a site that I wanted to get out to. And it's kind of one of the further out sacred sites. Like, it's a mission to get out there. It definitely, it's off the freeway, it's into the Forest Service past McLeod. And but I knew I needed to go out there. So, and there's Glass Mountain, the big mountain of obsidian flow out there that you can walk right up to. And yeah, so I had gone out there. I did a little purification ceremony, like just, I had at that point in time really gotten into, remembering doing ceremony stuff. And with the help of intern Omaran, gave me a little bit of kind of guidance and tools on how to, call in the directions and how to give offerings and kind of set up that space. So I did this purification ritual that I really just kind of made up, and then went out to the obsidian flow, and I was just walking and keeping everything just open and just witnessing, being in presence. And this obsidian rock that was like shaped like an eagle's head was just there. And I was like, whoa, that's so beautiful and intense. And it was like, it literally talked to me. It was like, bring me on the bring me onto the mountain. And I was like, Whoa, okay, okay. So I listened to that guidance, and I spent a night out there, and then I drove up to the mountain, um, and camped up on the mountain. Yeah, so that was how the obsidian came into the picture. Which, even as I wrote that chapter, I got another layer of what that eagle was, because
Mm.
I just knew that the eagle medicine was present. But as I was talking about the chapter, simultaneously with connecting with Antar and Omaran, I was connecting with this Star Knowledge community, which I had gotten an email in my inbox, don't know how I got it. And it was talking about Chief Golden Light Eagle and these conferences. He was having these Star Knowledge conferences, or like it was kind of a cross between a conference and a ceremony, where they had like ceremonial, like they had lodge and they drummed speakers in, but it was a speaker series, and people who had, kind of seen extraterrestrials, or, like that connection with star beings, were speaking about their experiences at these events. And Chief had channeled these books that were the universal and spiritual laws for humanity, and these symbols. And so I was like working with those as well. So when I wrote the chapter, I was like, oh, I didn't even know in that moment that the eagle was potentially Chief Golden Light Eagle supporting this process too, which I would also see him as a divine masculine. But yeah, the story that I told in the book is really about that camp, that time, that, when I went up to the mountain and camped, that I actually had a really strong, very strong visual, energetic, you know, mental, everything experience of Saint Germain coming through. And it was, I mean, I had the experience, but it wasn't until much later. I mean, when something like that, as phenomenal as that happens, you're just in no time, like you don't have thoughts, you don't know what that is all about. You're just like, what is happening? So it was like months and months later that I actually realized that the reason that helped me complete that cycle and that experience was that he was transmitting the divine masculine to me.
Saint
And
Germain.
Saint Germain,
Saint,
which was this, he had this very, I mean, it was just strong, clear, clean presence. It wasn't like overly loving, but it was kind of almost like teacherly, it was like a teacherly, strong presence, loving, definitely, but not like, not like light pouring it and loving, it was more just like, this is what it is to be stable, strong, and to know the way and to know the path, and to also love you and all of the mistakes and all of the journey. But I'm going to hold this framework really strong, which is now what I hold the masculine to be, is like this: let's hold the frame, let's support, and and guide, and do that in a loving way, and be all forgiving and all loving. But it's clear, the path, and we're going to keep you on the track. So that's, yeah, it was months later that I realized I got a divine masculine transmission, which I didn't realize that I hadn't had that in my life before that moment.
hmm.
I didn't know
Yeah,
what that, it was always, like, I love my father, but there's, and I will say not but, and um, I think a lot of men are very wounded, and are really trying to sink in and find that structure that is heart centered, as well as directive and supportive, not just supportive and directive to extract, not, with this internal rage against the feminine power. It's like there's something about this standing strong in that way. And I think, yeah, I know Saint Germain has been a guide since then for me, and from writing that. And I know Chief has too, but now I know that Chief was present in that ceremony for me, and that felt really, really magical. I didn't connect those dots until I wrote about it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, writing is powerful that way, isn't it?
So
So
much.
I I really want to encourage people to read your chapter because there's a way that you express yourself in the chapter that it's almost like this excitement, this spiritual like uh, joy that you are having. You know, it's like you and yourself and the earth and the invisible and the animals and the totems and the, you know, it's like it's so just palpable, you know. And I was like, oh, this is exciting, you know.
Oh.
So one of the things I want to articulate about that, making this connection from reading your story, you, laying this foundation of having disease in a deeply feminine part of your body. In fact, through my womb studies and my work as a womb priestess, I really understand that the cervix is a high spiritual center in the body, and
Mhm.
it is mainly unexplored by most people in the modern world. But wow, so that in itself is amazing. So what happens for you is, flash forward, you know, you find yourself being called to the mountain to have a private ceremony with yourself and the land, and this spiritual master who is in the masculine form, you know, comes to you. And then the next thing you know, you're spontaneously like having this next level of feminine healing with the land.
Mhm.
That's pretty wild in
It
a
was
really good
wild.
way. Like,
Yeah.
amazing when you connect all those dots, right? So that the more healed masculine was able to help you heal your feminine body. And
Mhm.
isn't that what we all want? I mean, that is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
We're all on this journey together, you know, and it's like I've often felt that it is the feminine is kind of leading the healing for humanity, and that when we heal ourselves, you know, it creates space for the masculine to step up. But your story reveals that the opposite is true too. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, you set this in motion, but then this spiritual master and masculine Saint Germain shows up and says, yeah, I'm going to show you how to complete this process.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And you know, it was all from just being committed to the mystery unfolding, you know, and just being present to and really deeply listening that all that happened. I could never plan that, you know. I was just I just surrendered to what the mystery had. My intent was clear. You know, I wanted a completion ceremony. But and I knew I wanted to go to Medicine Lake, but that was really it. Everything else was just like clear listening and like, okay, that's the felt okay, yep, okay, I'm gonna do that now. And you know, this is how it's gonna happen. And then these miracles, you know, happened. Saint Germain showed up, and then the next morning, you know, the chipmunk that had woken me up, you know, out of sleep to like witness that Saint Germain experience was like, come on, like go up further. Like I was just listening to it. It was just so comical actually that this chipmunk was like racing around my little camp area and was like, come on, you gotta go now. Like so going up and you know, the rocks like wanting me to move them around and yeah, you'll have to read the chapter, but you know, even then having almost yeah, having a midwife really show up to help me in that rebirthing. That was
Yeah, that's
another
another part of your story that people are going to have to go read the chapter to learn about. So
yeah, there
that's
was
really
another
beautiful,
person out of
incredible
the unknown.
synchronicity.
Yeah, out of the unknown and out of the
And
mystery. And I've never like, I haven't stayed in touch. We didn't get contact information. Like, it was just that was that for that, you know. And it was so
she was a
beautiful.
real person. You know? Yeah,
Chicken.
sometimes these like angels show up in form, and then it's like, with that, what?
I know. Yeah, but that's part of the magic of the mountain. Like, that's not, and I had to choose the story, right? This was called The Mystical Mountain, was like, tell a story. And this is the story. I knew I wanted to tell this story, but I have so many others of just incredible mystery and magic and synchronicities unfolding, um, that are that I could have chosen from. But yeah, because I've had a couple other really interesting situations happen where I feel like a spiritual master came through a actual human person's body to come and support around, in and around Mount Shasta. So yeah, we have to really.
Yeah,
I really want to encourage people that, like, we think we have an idea of what the true nature of reality is here on this planet, and we just have no clue. There's so much more that we can open up to and learn from and gain from and create with. And I think that's, like, in essence, part of what I really, the essence of what I wanted to share in the chapter is, like, stay open to all the possible realities, because there's so much we don't know.
so much. Yeah, so much. And it's rather exciting to just feel open to the mystery tour is what I like to call it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going to be revealed to me now? To expand my sense of connection and understanding of what is the reality here
Mm-hmm.
and elsewhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have traveled the world quite a bit. So I'm wondering if you can speak to why Mount Shasta? Like, what's up with this place? Like,
Yeah.
why is it so special?
Yeah. Well, I clued into well, now it's pretty widespread, at least amongst the spiritual communities that I know about, that there's this concept of the earth having chakras as well, right? So if we really understand ourselves as the microcosm of a macrocosm, we have this chakra body, we have these energy centers, we have these spinning wheels and vortexes within us, which, if I studied with this beautiful teacher, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, when I was studying somatics. So that's my training, is as a somatic psychotherapist. And when I was studying with her, she has a organization and a school called Body Mind Centering. And she went into embryology and started to remember her own building of her own body. And all these energy centers are actually flows of cell streaming that happened in our own creation that we remember. They're not physical anymore, but they were at one point in time in the womb. And that just blows my mind, first and foremost. But it's also like, this is happening because we're literally an extension of the planet. We've, like, our mothers took in matter from the earth to create and with our connection we created our own form from the matter and this DNA. And I mean, it's just like, that's magical enough of itself. But if we really see ourselves as extensions, of course the earth would have chakras and vortexes and flows of energy, from how she created the earth, how the earth was created. And Mount Shasta, and in my discovery, yeah, so I started to do being called to land, and I started, the energetic kind of awareness that I'm able to open up to is full in that way. And so I was getting called to land, and I was doing these clearings and activating. I was using my central channel as like a way to activate. And at some point in time, San Francisco was like, it was, no, I just got roadblocked. And I like to say I got spit out of San Francisco, and they were like, go, you need to go. I would try to come up here and, like, ground a home here. Nope, roadblock. I said, okay, surrender. Like, where am I supposed to go? So I'd wanted to study with this yoga teacher for a while. So I went to India first. And from there, I met this woman who had incredible bright blue eyes. And at that time I was studying star knowledge stuff. So I knew, I could feel she was like total Syrian goddess person. And she was half Egyptian. She invited me to go to Egypt right after that. I thought Egypt was like far in the distance. So It started there, and then I just started to traverse, and I got this whole map of the chakras of the planet, which, these are major sacred centers people are drawn to, tourism is drawn to. We're talking Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca being the sacral center. Egypt is our throat chakra center. Uluru in Australia, our solar plexus chakra, and Mount Shasta is the root chakra um, of the planet. So I started, and I it was like a magic carpet ride again, just surrendering to spirit and following the unknown took me to all of these places, and I got a really incredible map given to me about these kind of Ida and Pingala lines. That's like a yogic term for these masculine and feminine kind of dragon lines, and they go through the earth. And so I was dancing these lines and working with them and clearing and blessing and dissipating what I was witnessing there in the other dimensions. So yeah, when I came back to Shasta, I realized these lines they are so much. These chakras of the planet are vast. Mount Shasta is known as like the root chakra of the planet, but it's actually the heart of the root chakra. There's like a fractal of the chakras within each of the vortexes, the major vortexes. So the root chakra actually goes from Mount Tam all the way up through the Cascades into Mount Rainier, and then it just like crown chakra opens into the stellar gateway into BC, into British Columbia and Canada. So, you can track that, but Mount Shasta is sitting at the heart of the root chakra, which is why I think it's so potent and it's so powerful, because what we stream here and what we intend here and what activations we're getting here are so grounded in that root energy, but it's like from the heart place. So, um, yeah, I think that's why so many people are really drawn here, and why so many like big social movements have happened out of like the Bay Area too, because Mount Tamalpais, is right above the Bay Area. It's in Marin, and you think of the Summer of Love. That was a huge major movement. You think of like even like the queer movement, or you know um, how many protests go on in that place. It's a social kind of discord place, and the tech movement. I mean, like these things that are widespread, kind of, there's something that evolves straight out of that place. So I think that's why it's yeah, there's a little bit of uh who's going to take control of that center, because it has the capacity to transmit throughout the globe. And here we have this heart transmission that can really radiate throughout the planet.
Yeah, in Mount Shasta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very powerful activator, is kind of how I feel about the mountain and that whole area. Is like whatever is going on is going to be bigger and more potent, because you're being energized by this chakra at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
and and it's, the heart portal in us and in the planet is um it's a stargate. It's like it's an infinite place, and it holds the wholeness of or it holds non-duality, right? Which means it holds a duality. And so you see the light and dark going on, and it's a whole picture. It's like the whole piece of the puzzle, and you can see how just in some of the social dynamics here, you can see how things and the trends that are going on globally are also happening here in a very microcosm or the macrocosm way. So it's potent. And so the prayers that we make, and the leaders of this, the people who are stepping up into leadership for this new earth time, and as our entrance into the golden age, it's like a very powerful place to build and to co-create with the creator, with Gaia, to like start building what we want to see moving into the future. So I think that's
mm,
why I got grounded here, and that's what we're doing here at the Rainbow Bridge. Is I call it a new earth school, because it's not a retreat center. We're not getting away from anything. We're actually coming together, and working on building and co-creating and being in our creativity, and and call it an ashram meets adult summer camp, because we have to keep our inner child really close as we're doing this stuff, but we also have to be disciplined in our spiritual practices and clearing out the karmas. So that's what we're up to
Mhm.
over here, but we really try and make it fun, and we try to have a laugh about it, because why not?
Got to, yeah. Life
You
is
got
funny. It's funny.
it is.
And it's a lot of things besides funny, of course. So what I'm hearing you say is that, Mount Shasta has this role in the emerging new earth because of the heart template. Is that what
Yes.
you're getting at? Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
And it seems that, there's a purity to the land there that really allows spiritual perception to open.
Yes.
For
Yes.
whatever the message is that a person is meant to receive, you have had your specific experiences that were right on time for your soul journey and what it is that you're needing to learn and bring and for your own healing. And other people have really different experiences, but just noticing that we were talking about something really powerful around Mount Shasta's role as a new earth generator of these
Mhm.
energies. And on my screen, it was like there was this surge of power. My lights flashed in the room. The computer flashed. Like I imagine I out of that lost signal for a minute. But anyway, just timing, right? It's just
Well,
fascinating.
and it's great because you're reminding me of another aspect of Mount Shasta, which I've got included into, and um, I don't know at this point where that information came from. I don't know where the source of that information, whether it was through my my guidance or if I heard about it, or so we'll just take it in for a moment, but it's always rung true for me, which is that when before Atlantis fell, there were several major temples where the crystals powered up these temples. There's massive crystals that powered up these temples, and the central one, had a crystal connected to it called the Om crystal, and it vibrated at the Om frequency. And the priests and priestesses of Atlantis, when they knew the temple was falling, etherically placed the Om crystal on Mount Shasta. And the
Oh,
other
my God.
temple crystals were placed in other places where there's a high concentration of crystals. So 3 of them were placed in the contiguous quartz mine in Arkansas. That's why the Arkansas quartz has a particularly high frequency. And then 3 of them were placed in the etherically in the contiguous quartz mines in Brazil, the world's largest contiguous quartz mine. And so that's why Brazilian quartz is also super high frequency. So that's something that I've known about for a long time. And I always think about that when I come to Mount Shasta or when I'm with the mountain, is that you're constantly in an Om vibration. So, on top of it being the heart chakra of the root chakra of the planet, it's like also vibrating at Om. And so there is this way that, like, that's what I'm saying. You can't really plan from the mind what's going to happen when you come and visit Mount Shasta. It has its own course and its own plan and program that's in the divine alignment with creator. And when you get connected into that co-creation with creator vibration, you can feel it. You're like in a rushing stream. It's like being in the no mind. It's being in the creative flow. It's being in, you can achieve that from, like, yeah, any artistic pursuit, when you're really letting yourself just be in that no mind, no space, just pure, let it unfold, let it unfold, let it unfold. And that's what I know that happens here. And so you can be sure the lessons that you're receiving here are true. Like, these are the things that you need to face, and the light that comes in is like the gifts and the dispensations of the work you have done. So I feel like it's a wonderful place to come because you don't have to worry about distortion. The mountain is
Wow.
vibrating in the ohm all the time. So if it's coming through, it's definitely a lesson for you.
Yeah, that's cool. I hadn't heard it put that way.
Hmm.
So yeah, let's to wrap up. I just want to give you an opportunity for like any parting words or messages that you feel want to be shared about your own journey with Mount Shasta or message from the mountain herself.
Well, I mean, the biggest feeling and sentiment right now is just so much gratitude for you, for doing the hard work. I know it's hard work of gathering all of these authors. The big challenge and the big responsibility of bringing these stories to print. It's yeah, is a tremendous effort, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And I'm so grateful these stories are getting out. It's inspired me to write more. In fact, I just spoke with someone who I'm working with that's coaching me a bit on just keeping the consistency rolling with putting words on the page, which, for me, that's the biggest hurdle. It's like once I get going, I can go, but getting started and sitting down, and it's just another modality of entering the unknown, right? If you put your pen to page and you don't know what's going to come out. So it's yeah, it's a cool new modality that I'm exploring now. So I'm grateful for that. And yeah, I encourage people to come here, and this is why we created the space here to do that. So we have our retreat season, or I won't say retreat, our school starts May, it runs from May through October. We're going to be putting out our calendar of events for this upcoming 2025 season on January 11th. So that's just in a few days. I'm going to send an email out. So, yeah, if you want to stay connected to that, go to Star Body Earth and put in your email address to our little newsletter. And we don't spam, we just put out stuff. So, if people want to come to the mountain and enjoy an immersion, we can do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
so good. So I'll be sure
yeah.
to drop information in the YouTube description here too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and then you mentioned the sacred tours. So, on the off season, I'm off doing the grid work still, and I'm inviting people to come and join at some of the sacred centers. And each year that changes. And this year in March, we have both a 13-day tour, trekking in Nepal to a sacred lake, Gosekunda, which is an incredibly potent place to um, transmute any of the old karma that you're ready to let go of. And it's a huge, yeah, there's a whole story about it. You can see my website. And then in Egypt, we'll be in Egypt at the end of March and early April. So that's a big activation. We go all the way from the bottom of the Nile up to the top of the Nile. Um, do all the whole chakra body within the throat chakra, and we all know that's the maybe we don't all know, but post Atlantis falling, the survivors of Atlantis created the golden age of Egypt, and that was where all those temples were. That was the time that all those temples were built. And so it's a very potent activation place. And if you have any memories or a draw to Egyptian culture, and especially ancient Egypt, there's probably something there for you. And going
Beautiful.
to that land, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for this rich conversation. And yeah, may these words just reach the right people in the right place inside of them so that, you all can find the medicine through the words, through the experiences. It can come through Mount Shasta without even having to go there,
Yeah.
just feeling more presence through others. So, all right, Melanie, big
Thank you so
blessings.
much. Blessings.